device of choice, and let's get ready to learn more about God and His Word together. Looking for a group? Head to the CC Live Facebook page now to find the one that's right for you.
Are you on Spotify? If so, be sure to check out our worship playlists by searching for the playlist name, Worship at Christ's Church.
Giving online couldn't be any easier. To give, go to ourchristchurch.com. Click on the Give link. On the Giving page, click on Give from Bank Account. Next, click on the link to PushPay. On this page, you can set up your one-time gift or set up a recurring gift. You can also make a gift by simply texting CC Mason to 77977. Click on the link you receive. Next, fill out your information and submit your gift.
We all need community. Connection. One of the most unique elements of CC Live is that it is more than just a once-a-week worship experience. We are creating a global community of believers who meet together worldwide to be inspired, equipped, and encouraged with their faith. And the best part about it is you can do it anytime, anywhere. The purpose of online groups is building community while growing your Christian faith. Online groups watch video-based Bible teaching and discuss what they're learning from the comfort of their own homes. During the week between meetings, group members can dive deeper into the topic in preparation for the next meeting. It's simple, easy, and impactful. So grab a coffee, a Bible, and your device of choice, and let's get ready to learn more about God and His Word together. Looking for a group? Head to the CC Live Facebook page now to find the one that's right for you.
Are you on Spotify? If so, be sure to check out our worship playlists by searching for the playlist name, Worship at Christ's Church.
Giving online couldn't be any easier. To give, go to ourchristchurch.com. Click on the Give link. On the Giving page, click on Give from Bank Account. Next, click on the link to PushPay. On this page, you can set up your one-time gift or set up a recurring gift. You can also make a gift by simply texting CC Mason to 77977. Click on the link you receive. Next, fill out your information and submit your gift.
We all need community. Connection. One of the most unique elements of CC Live is that it is more than just a once-a-week worship experience. We are creating a global community of believers who meet together worldwide to be inspired, equipped, and encouraged with their faith. And the best part about it is you can do it anytime, anywhere. The purpose of online groups is building community while growing your Christian faith. Online groups watch video-based Bible teaching and discuss what they're learning from the comfort of their own homes. During the week between meetings, group members can dive deeper into the topic in preparation for the next meeting. It's simple, easy, and impactful. So grab a coffee, a Bible, and your device of choice, and let's get ready to learn more about God and His Word together. Looking for a group? Head to the CC Live Facebook page now to find the one that's right for you.
Are you on Spotify? If so, be sure to check out our worship playlists by searching for the playlist name, Worship at Christ's Church.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk. This is our Let's Talk number 4.
Is it number 4?
Number 4.
That's fun.
Can you believe that?
No, because I was only here for 3 of them, so it just feels like 3 for me.
Come on now.
And it's her first one, so it just feels like
That's
1.
true.
Let's talk number 1.
This podcast number 4, It is a brand new one we launched, designed to keep you up to date and connected during this crazy time of coronavirus. This still going on, right?
From what I'm hearing, it's still a thing.
In a time where social distancing can lead many to feel isolated and alone, we want to create a space where we can gather together, sit back, connect, and help each other out. And maybe laugh a little bit along the way, which is going to happen tonight for sure, right?
Well, if Brad's sitting at the table, guaranteed he's going to say
Mr.
something.
Willis is back.
He's
so
here.
We're going to have a good time.
Yep. He looks, by the way, we were saying before this started, I'm so glad I get a haircut tomorrow, but I'm more happy for Brad because those sideburns are turning into side fires, man. Those things are moving.
Here, Brad, give everybody a quick shot of your hair right now.
Please just take your hat off. We got to show this. Bro,
those are not sideburns.
They're side fires, bro. Those are side fires. It's unbelievable.
You just got to roll with what you got, man.
Absolutely, man. Scissors. Buy some scissors, man. We can take care of that.
Takes me back to third grade pictures.
Well, I'm your host, Joey Santos, your online pastor here at Christ Church in Mason, Ohio. Today, I have with you, as always, for the last 3 weeks, our chief shepherd.
You got to get some new verbiage, bro.
Dude, I'm telling you, I got my writing team behind me.
I'm starting to believe you're the only person on your writing team because you've not edited that out in the 3 times I've been on here.
And also, Mr. Willis, right here, Brad Wilson, Man, you got so many titles right now. But
he doesn't have a title. He's just the every title is his title.
Our teaching pastor. But we had a great fourth person with us today, SHAWN. Welcome, SHAWN. We should have those like fake applause.
Oh yeah.
We should have those. Yeah, we should have those here.
Yeah.
And you probably know SHAWN Lewis. She's our Sissy Kids director here at Christ Church. She has worked in early childhood education for 30 years as a teacher-centered director, professor,
You're not old
and
enough
now
for 30 years.
pastor.
Right.
I know. I saw this. I got this from my writing team, and I was like,
see,
wow, 30 years?
They don't know what they're doing, bro. Like, they call me Chief Shepherd. She's 27. I mean, I don't understand.
Hey, just for the record, I have the best writing team on the planet, so don't even try.
Oh, who's on this writing team that you keep telling us about?
Nah, they don't like credit. They don't like personal credit. They just like to call a team.
Yeah.
So, SHAWN, welcome to the table.
I'm not sure I buy anything he's saying right now.
Hey, I believe in your writing team.
Thank you.
That means Brad's on the writing team, is what that means.
So I know we want to absolutely have a good time talking tonight. We want to just exchange ideas. This is very relaxed. This is very informal, but we talk about things that are current and happening. And today we're going to talk about fear. And just to start here, for everybody joining us online right now, make sure to send your questions. Join the chat room on Facebook or CC Live page on YouTube. Make sure to send your questions. One of the people on the staff that I'm afraid the most, Shannon, and we're talking about fear. She's going to share a link with you. And
are you fearful about the link she's
very
gonna share?
fearful right now. And she's going to share a link with you guys right now, so you can ask your questions. You can send your questions,
and they're anonymous.
They're anonymous. That's great. Do you know what I mean? Like just send us a question.
So you don't have to be fearful about sending your question. Like
True. Right there.
You see what I'm doing there?
Is Alan Baumline moderating any chats?
That I'd be fearful of, because nobody'd understand what he was typing back.
I'm going to start this with our teaching pastor here right now. Brad, by definition, fear is that unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is in danger, like to cause pain. Fear is a real thing, right? It's not it's an emotion, and for somebody like you and me, emotions, is a real thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
by real, you mean you really have none? Yes, absolutely. It's very real.
Walk us through, like, in your personal opinion, is fear a real thing? And on top of that, if it's a real thing and we have the emotion, we have the feeling, and it can happen, why the Bible says fear not? Like we see in the Bible, and this is one of the questions we got during the week, the Bible says fear not. How do I really unpack that for us a little bit?
I mean, I think if the Bible says fear not, that's kind of a key that it's probably a real thing. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that there's a difference between, to me, fear is a state that you find yourself in, and the difference sometimes with being afraid and being fearful, but I think they're kind of two different things. So I think for a lot of people with fear, I think the reason the Bible says fear not is fear is very controlling. Fear can be very manipulating. Fear can cause us just to do crazy things if we let it control us in bad ways. And so I think we see it right now. With our country and throughout the world, fear
is fear a good thing, or can fear be good?
It depends on it. There is good fear in the Bible.
Give me an example.
Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline." So there's two types of fear, and if you look like with kids, with mine is. There's certain things you want kids to be fearful of. It's like if people always use the example of stoves, probably because kids touch them a lot. But if you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand back, you want them to be fearful of that so they don't touch it again, so they don't hurt themselves with fire or certain things. But the problem is when fear just multiplies and then it consumes and controls everything in life.
So just to pick up on that, because I'm going to follow up with you on that, but that example of your kid, do you want your kid to be afraid of the stove, or you want him to have the knowledge that if you touch that, you may burn yourself? Like, I think
that's when fear turns into respect of the thing that can harm you.
But then, what is the psychological effect of fear at that point? Don't you think the kid can think, oh, fear's a good thing, and then something bigger happened, and the kid's afraid in the future, well, fear's a good thing, I'm glad I have that, but that can be damaging. Is that true or not?
It's true, but I think it depends on the process you walk through with it. So you start off initially, when my kids were little, if they were afraid of something and it kept them from getting hurt, I don't care how long they were afraid of it. But then as they would get older and as they had the ability to understand and comprehend, then you can begin to teach them or educate them on, okay, you don't need to have the same fear of this because you know how it operates. You know not to touch it. You know what will happen if you touch it. So everything's a process.
Okay, so Shawn, as an educator.
Yes.
Give me your side of that.
He just gave me the perfect intro to that because he said fear, if you learn from that. Yeah. My daughter was petrified of the vacuum cleaner when she was little. We turned it on, she freaked out. Yeah. So I would, and you have to realize,
you teed that up so well.
My kids are very close in age, only 15 months apart. So I was very pregnant with a scared to death toddler or infant who was afraid of the vacuum cleaner. So I would sit her on my belly and turn on music, and we would dance to the vacuum cleaner so that she wouldn't be afraid of it. When I was growing up, I was afraid of storms. And so my grandparents would take me on the porch, and we made milkshakes and we watched storms. So when my kids were afraid of storms, we opened the garage door, we made milkshakes, and we watched storms so that they could see that there's a respect of storms. You don't stand out under a tree, under a branch when there's a storm going on, but you don't have to hide under your bed when there's a storm going on. And you have to learn where fear keeps you safe and where fear goes too far. It's all in your reaction to it. So it's good to have some fear, and that's what we try to work with on kids. Kids are afraid of bugs and dark and different things. And so you want to tell them, okay, in the dark, it's okay to have some fear because you don't want to trip over what's there, but what can you do? You can turn on the light, you can feel the wall, you can do those things. So you teach them how, when you have the fear, stop, breathe deeply, and figure out how to get through that so that the fear doesn't control you. You control the fear can't control you.
Got it. So Trevor, for you is there a certain amount of fear that's doable? Like that, it's okay for me to have this amount of fear, and how do I manage that?
And here's the thing: a lot of people think the opposite of fear is courage. That's not what Scripture teaches. if you go, I think it's 1 John, is it 1 John 4, where it says perfect love drives out fear? It's not perfect courage drives out fear. Perfect love drives out fear. So you begin to use all these illustrations of your kids touching the stove, your kids scared of the vacuum, being scared of storms. In this pandemic, the fear of I'm going to get infected, the fear of I've got loved ones that might die. Here's the thing, is it's not raise up and be courageous and your fear is going to go away. The perfect love of Jesus is the perfect love. Like, none of us love perfectly. But striving to love people the way that Jesus loves them, that's where fear dissipates. And I think there is a healthy level. I think there's such a thing as healthy fear. I think it gets unhealthy when we're consumed by fear. And when fear is the thing that drives us and we can't get through. We talked about this with staff meeting a couple weeks ago of, there's a difference in having fear for a moment and living fearful lives. And so, sure, are there things that scare me? Like, I know you'll probably bring this up later, so I'll just bring it up anyhow. But we literally had, it was about a 3-foot snake in our shed this last week. Now, if there's anything, and I'm in all seriousness, y'all can say whatever you want in the comments. Y'all can say, got all your jokes, whatever. I'm like, literally, it's a real fear, like petrified, will not. Now, you give me a bug, you give me a spider, you give me a cockroach, hey, I can handle any of that. Snakes, I mean, literally, it paralyzes me. And my wife doesn't. So she's down at the shed trying to get the snake out. And I'm like, have fun with that. Don't die. Don't get bit. And she would have got it, but it was above her head, like striking down at her. So we had a friend come over. Here's the deal. Like, it's an unhealthy fear. I know it is. It's in fact, in most regards, it's an irrational fear. But if I'm in the desert and I hear a rattle, now it's a healthy fear because I don't want to go near that. A milk snake in my shed, can it bite me? I'm sure. Am I going to find out? No. And it's probably it gets to the point, like, I literally couldn't leave my front porch. I stood 100 yards away from my shed watching somebody else get it out. And as they walk towards me, they're like, where do you want me to put it? I'm like, not up here, take it somewhere else. But some of us live our lives that way, right? Where we live in this unhealthy fear of things of what if everything to death? Well, what if I get COVID? What if my kids get sick? What if I'm sure we're all parents. Like, I don't know. My greatest fear is that I would lose one of my children. It's just my greatest fear.
So wait, do you think part of fear is associated with lack of knowledge? Like, for example, for the longest time, like 20 years ago, I was terrified of flying. Like, that's hilarious after knowing what right?
we do now. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like I didn't want anything to do. This is before 9/11. I mean, I just didn't want to fly. But I was forced to, I had to go to places and never told anybody about it. I just didn't. I didn't like it. I got in the plane. I just like close my eyes and see, this is it. This is my last flight, and kind of thought process. And the process that I got myself into was, more that I did this, more I'm going to learn to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But took a long time to get into that process. And I'm glad I did because, the last few years has been like a lot of time in an airplane. So
yeah, but I don't,
that's my point about, like, it's a matter of knowledge, it's a matter of
I don't think
experience.
It's a lack of knowledge now in our culture. I think our college has our college. I don't know why I said college. Our culture has too much knowledge. Like, you think about all these people
causing fear. Then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because I've got friends that if they get a sniffle, they get on WebMD and they're dead in 24 hours. I mean, you've got those friends, right? Like, I know we've literally got people that we had friends in Texas that if they got sick at all, I mean, an earache, a headache, like, my wife would get a phone call or a text message and it's like, hey, I looked this up on WebMD and I think I've got a tumor. And it's like, how did you go from an allergic, like, pollen in the air headache to you're going to be dead in 24 hours from a tumor? Yeah. We've got so much knowledge at our fingertips that I think sometimes we think we're smarter than God.
Do we have knowledge or do we have information?
Well, we have information.
Yeah.
And we think we've got knowledge.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good point right there,
I think that's
Sean.
a great statement, Sean.
That's a great point because knowledge actually would help us to not be so afraid. So let me ask you this, because dealing with parents and kids, how can you help parents to know the difference between fear and just being worried about something? I mean, is there any difference about those words, worry or
worry can lead to fear when you let that worry well up inside of you and you don't look for true knowledge. You just get the information. Today, right before we came here, I was going through my feed, and the first thing that pops up is this new reaction kids are having to the virus. And it angered me that they're putting it out everywhere, and the fact that very few kids are going to get that. It's a terrible thing if a child does get it, but so few kids are going to get it, but now every parent is afraid of it. And that's where that information overload leads to fear, instead of the knowledge of, I think it's like 1% have the chance of getting that. So let's worry about that 1%. Let's take care of that 1% if it happens, but every single parent shouldn't go to bed not being able to sleep because of 1%.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Brad, because that's a good point that she's making on the fact of, knowledge and how knowledge can lead. Knowledge can be a good thing, but too much information. Mm-hmm. How do you filter things out? Like personally, how do you look at information and separate? Let's help people watching right now, listening. How do you help people listening to, like, okay, this amount of information comes to me every day. How do I filter this out to know exactly what I need to know, so I don't let that fear comes back, or the worry and all that stuff?
I mean, I think that's a difficult question to answer. There's a term that's floating around. We've talked about it a little bit here, that it's really in this social media era that people use a term is called fear porn. And the idea behind it is fear comes all over the place. So for me personally, and people will probably think I'm crazy, I just don't. 85% of the stuff that's posted on social media, I don't believe it anyway.
I don't believe 85% of what you post on social media.
I don't even post on social media. So it's like when information comes out, I just think that people like to be in controlled situations, and so they read stuff and they buy it. And I think the problem is there's so much information that the important stuff often gets lost with people, and they just don't pay any attention to it. And for me, I don't know. I just figure out, well, this is what I got to do today. I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
What about you? How do you filter things out? How do you look at information every day, and how do you filter those things out so it doesn't have the
you know
fear
what?
in it?
I think my filter's changed. People have asked me, are you scared of this pandemic? Are you scared of what's going on? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not. I've got, like, my fear right now, and part of that is, honestly, I know Brad says, 85% of what he's reading online, he doesn't believe. I filter. I used to, when this thing first started, I was watching the news a lot, because there was things that were affecting how we were operating day to day. Literally tonight, I walked in right before, and SHAWN and I were talking. She was like, "Did you hear the press conference today?" I haven't watched a press conference in over a month. I haven't even turned on really the news. I get an email every day that gives me blips of headlines. That is it's one of the few semi-unbiased news sources. It's just kind of, here's the top hits. But it's interesting, and this is going to sound so pastory, so churchy, so Jesus-y to say, but I think it's the right answer for me. And I think it is for a lot of us. What this time has done for me, I think the reason why my fear has gone down, I'm in God's word more than ever before. I'm in prayer in a way that I've never been before. I'm engaging with people in those realms on a daily basis. We've got a support system here that is speaking into one another. And so fear doesn't dissipate by you going into the closet and praying to God that nothing happens to you. I believe fear dissipates when we get ourselves in loving communities of people that will go, hey, let's pray through this together. Let's see what Scripture has to say about this. And I know there's people watching this that are going, well, you got to say that because you're a pastor. No, I say that because I'm a Christ follower. And I say that because I've watched it personally happen to me. So I filter now, does my fear line up with Scripture? So is it my fear of the Lord that I'm fearful of? Or is it my fear of whatever it is, snakes, losing a child, COVID, fill in the blank? What does God say about my fear? And if my fear does not line up with what God says is the appropriate fearfulness, then I've got to filter it through that.
So for you guys, is fear something we manage more than we eliminate? Is that right?
Yes.
I would say absolutely.
That's something you manage. So, okay, I was afraid of airplane. He was afraid of snake.
No, I'm still afraid of
You're
snakes.
still afraid of snakes.
I'm not like you. You're riding airplanes. I'm not riding snakes.
I know.
I'm not out there like yippee-ki-yay. Like I'm not
Well, we
strapping
got
a
to work
saddle
on that now.
Yeah.
No,
that-
we don't
that's-
have to work on
No.
it.
We'll work on that. You know, for all the folks listening right now, we need ideas.
We will
to help
cease to be
Trevor.
friends, and you will all be fired in the moment that it happens.
We got to help Trevor through this.
I'm just telling you,
fear.
no joke. There's a reason. Somebody said to me the other night, they were like, "You got in a cage with a lion, but you're scared of a snake." And I'm like, Jesus was compared to the Lion of Judah. Snakes were compared to the devil. I'm not going to play with the devil.
point.
I'm going to hang out with Jesus. So keep the devil away from me.
Tell you, Sean, anything that you're afraid of.
Tell me. Yeah.
I keep forgetting, like, this is a podcast, right?
Yes.
So people are not watching, they're listening.
Yes.
So, Sean, what are you afraid of, or you used to be afraid of?
Well, I've always been afraid of spiders, and that's not going to change. So I'll come kill your snakes if you kill spiders. That was
Sounds
kind
great.
of a deal when I got married. I will get all the snakes out of the yard as long as my husband kills every spider.
So you still
I don't touch them.
You still don't.
No, I
like-
leave the room. And if somebody has a picture, like on Facebook, they show a spider in their house, I block
Really?
them for
Girl,
the
I
day,
feel
so
your
I don't
pain,
have to see
Because when
it.
my wife sent me the picture of the snake to put on social
Yeah.
media, I asked somebody to come get it. I couldn't look at it.
Yeah, no,
I'd
I
have
don't
my
look
kid
at them.
post it.
That, like, it's a real fear. But as an adult, some of the fears that I started facing, once I had kids, I had this weird fear of someone taking them. Like, kidnapping is so rare. I mean, especially living in the safe neighborhood I live in, it's so rare. But I had like this weird fear about it. And so I had to pray about it constantly to just say, okay, I got to get over this because I don't have enemies. There's nobody that's going to come take my kids. And I just had to get through it. But as I meet more parents, everybody has a weird fear. It's either like, my son, a lot of people don't know it, like he had a lot of weird illnesses growing up. I mean, he was sick in the hospital at birth. He was in the ER at 6 weeks old. We went through a lot of stuff. That never scared me. Like all his health issues never scared me.
Really?
But I was afraid somebody was going to take my kids. Like sometimes fear overtakes you in weird ways. But I think when you have to face it, like I had to face his health stuff. So I was just fighting it. So then I wasn't afraid because I was fighting it. With the other stuff that wasn't real, I put it in my head. So it consumed me because I wasn't fighting it. I was just letting it consume me.
Now let's go to Brad Wilson. This is going to be like, we need drums here.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like
What
this
do
is
you
something's
fear?
gonna be
No,
gold.
This is
I
gonna
just
be-
don't know
this is
what
gonna
it's-
be good. What are you afraid of, Brad?
And what type of answer do you want? Do you want a
Alan bomb line.
church answer? I mean, I would say from a personal level, my fear is if there's ever something job related. I'll give you two. If there's something job related, like if I know there's a weekend I'm teaching, my fear is when I used to be on the stage or whatever that I'll forget everything. And it'll be like Top Gun, where Goose and Maverick is crashing. They just crash
You're
right
gonna
into jet
eject and it's
wash.
gonna be over. Yeah.
So someone's gonna be Pete Mitchell and hold me in the water, and I ain't moving. That's my fear. Or when we do an event, like I just like build the walls when we do it every year. My fear is just like that we're gonna get to the day of, and someone's gonna steal all the wood, or there's gonna be a bonfire. The event's gonna, and then everyone's gonna be like, "We're done with you." That's a job thing. So every year, so once the events go, I always think worst case scenarios. I know it's a surprise. And then my other one right now with the fear of everything is just that when I look at what's going on right now, is like in the culture, is it's not COVID-19, but my fear is that what we're doing is that we're playing a game, and I don't want to forfeit my son's future, and I don't want to see the deal with the effects of the world's always going to have, whether it's viruses or disasters. I mean, we live from a biblical standpoint, we live in a fallen world. Sin is just that I don't want to see us continually be controlled and see, our country's literally shut down over this virus, and I don't want my kids growing up in something that, in my opinion, could be avoided by us just getting out and doing something about it.
Here's an example, Sean. How would you help a parent or a couple that is trying to have a child and they have their first child and they lose their child. And the fear to go through that again, like trying to have a child again after
Right.
losing the one child they had, and
Right.
going through that again, how would you help that couple?
The biggest thing that in that is that you have to decide if you're going to try to have another child, if you're going to try to get pregnant again, that you have to remember what the end result is, not the beginning. And you have to decide that it's worth the fight to get there. Because otherwise the fear can consume you. I have a very good friend who lost her first child. I think she was 38 weeks. No idea that anything could go wrong. And she said she was never able to relax through the entire pregnancy. She always wondered because, I mean, it was at the end of the pregnancy, but knowing that she wanted to be a mom made it worth going through the fear. So you have to fight yourself every day. Because I think everybody fears it, whether you've lost a child or not. And when you've lost a child and you know that pain that you've gone through, the fear can consume you. But if you let it consume you, then you're putting yourself and that baby at risk. And so it's really just holding their hand through it. You can't stop the fear, but you can love somebody through it, and the love can get them through.
And you know
So
what's
they need a
interesting?
community.
But you know what's interesting to me about, especially this, and I think it's become more prevalent that people actually talk about it, but there's this fear because everyone thinks they're alone in this thing.
Right.
Like, I'm the only one this is happening to. I remember when I was growing up, you never heard of people losing babies.
People didn't talk about it.
Because nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
And there was almost a shame that came with it, and which there should be no shame in that. But I think going back to the information or knowledge or wisdom piece, when you actually have the knowledge of I'm not alone.
Yes.
I'm not the only one that's gone through this. Like Steph Santel put a comment in here a minute ago where they lost one of their children. And she just said, she goes, same as what I said earlier, is that one of my biggest fears is losing a child. And she said it has always been, even before having kids, and then after they lost Reed, she goes, I feel like my fear of going through that again is out of control.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know how to let go of that fear after experiencing that trauma. And this is what I love about this podcast is we're not here to give you a 4-step process on how to not be fearful anymore. What I will tell you is it's a process, and I'm not sure on this side of eternity that we will live lives completely free of fear.
Yeah. Well, and I tell people, like Steph and I talked about this one day, is it's not supposed to make sense. I remember when Andy and Jackie Sobalski lost their son, and then Jackie helped someone else through it. She helped Michelle Hastings, we held a funeral for them. And she said, I never wanted this to be how I ministered to families, but I understand it more than everyone else. So rather than let my pain just consume me, I'm going to use it to help other people. And I think Steph did that beautifully this last week when she shared about Reed, is just that you have to, one way to help yourself live through it, you don't get over it, but you live through it, is by helping other people get through it. And it's that the love can...
Perfect love drives out fear.
And that's just what I try to go through.
Brad, let's look from single parenting perspective, because I'm sure there's single parents watching and listening to this right now, and there's a ton of questions in their minds, of fear of the dynamics of raising the kid in the challenges of it, and I'm sure there's some fear there. So how would you handle that? How would you handle that fear?
I think there's a number of things to work through with it, and from my standpoint is you're going to make mistakes. You just almost have to get to a point, I think, where you're comfortable with whatever you do, and you realize that if you do everything you can, obviously your faith is huge in that, but that regardless of what you do every day, is we so often focus on the bad things we do, we forget about the good things. And I remember when my boys were little, going through the divorce, and I was having a conversation with my dad, and what really was messing with me is I was not going to have them half the time. And so my fear was, okay, I'm supposed to protect them. I can't half the time, even with me. And okay, so what am I going to do? What's going to happen for them when I'm not with them? I remember my dad told me something that I didn't like hearing at the time, but he was right. And he said, son, no matter how much you think you love those kids, it's not even close to how much God loves them. And so if you're going to stand up and you're going to teach people about God and you're going to live out this faith, he said, then you have to remember and you have to believe and you have to remind people that no matter how great of a parent we are, and there's a lot of great parents, I know there's a lot of great parents in our church, that God, how he loves our kids. And so single parents, like when you don't have your kids, that's where you just have to trust that God is going to get them to where they want. And to me, the big thing is when you give up that control, but when you let go of it and you kind of trust God, it's amazing how there's, I don't want to know if the word's reinforcements, but for me, that was an illuminating part of the process for me, realizing, okay, that all I'm doing is God's going to get my boys where he wants them to be, and he's going to bring me along in the process. And so I may be the single parent by myself, but I have a great tag team partner, obviously better than me and God. And it's just where you kind of put that trust in and you move through knowing that there's going to be some great times, there's going to be some bad times, but do you have confidence and do you believe in what God says? And if you believe in what he says, you're going to believe it when it's good, but you're definitely going to believe it when it's bad.
Trevor, let me tag on to what he's saying, because that's a great point that he's making while you're saying. And I think there's this common fear that goes all over the place. It's a very unspoken type of fear because it's so common that we don't talk about it, we don't name it. But I think in every aspect of life, parenting, business, job, you name it, I think there's just general fear to fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want to disappoint somebody, and that causes real fear. Is that true? Is that real?
Absolutely, it's real. Honestly, it's probably one of my fears. As a leader and a leader of a church, and then you feel like in our role, Brad, you probably feel this as well, just because of the preaching standpoint. But I feel like there's this mantle of leadership that God has given me to lead a church. And so I have those moments of, man, we used to say this all the time, and we still do kind of behind the scenes. Like we just want to do what God's called us to do and not screw it up. And there's this legitimate fear of, I don't want to screw up the church. I don't want to screw up God's kingdom. I don't want to screw up. I really feel like life or death is in the balance with what we do. And that's as Christ followers, but I hate disappointing people, the fear of failure, the fear of disappointing our elders, the fear of disappointing people in our church, the fear of disappointing our staff, the fear of, even here I am at 41 years old, and I don't know if you guys are this way, but the fear of disappointing my father or my mother. Like that. And sometimes I think that fear drives you into health in some regards. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I have such a fear of letting down the kingdom that I think there's things that if I didn't love Jesus, I'd have blown my whole life up. But because I lead a church, and I'll give you an example. Like we've been talking pretty candidly about this on our live prayer times every day. Like I think people think because we work in the church, we're immune to certain things, right? Like, well, you guys don't struggle with lust and sin, and I'm like, really? I bleed blood too. Like, don't make me bleed my own blood, And so, but I've had these moments where the enemy has presented real opportunity for me to blow my life up, for me to destroy my marriage, to destroy my kingdom impact, and thank God, for accountability, but thank God too for I've got such a healthy fear of disappointing the kingdom. You know what I mean? That drives me in a healthy way to not just go out and blow up my entire life.
I know there's some young people watching this right now from all ages, including my kids. So there's a lot of young people watching, and I want all of us to join this conversation right now, because I think it's good for us to help them to understand that, one, we all have this fear to fail. But the fear to fail should not stop us from doing what we feel or believe what we got to do. So I want you guys to all jump in and talk about this. How did you handle that yourself younger age, trying to make it, trying to, jump into your professional life and get a job and want to succeed.
Yeah.
But there's always that fear. Is that true? Did you have that fear to fail and not make it and not be successful? And how did you handle that personally? And let's see if we can help some young folks out there to kind of take that step.
I think everybody has that fear at some point, and it might be when you're younger. A lot of times it's school or sports or your music or whatever it is that you're into. And then when you move on, like one thing that we did when our kids were younger, they played high level sports. We had them try out for the higher level team the year before we were going to move up so that they could go through tryouts with no fear of failure. It didn't matter because you weren't going to join a team that year. We weren't going to let you join till the next year. I wish I'd gotten that chance in a lot of things in life. Try it once, and then you don't have to. But I think that if you let the fear drive you to be better, then it's good for you. If you let it hold you back, then you have regrets. Like nobody ever said that, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't tried that because I had to try it 4 times before I got it right. People have said, I let the fear keep me from ever trying, and now I have regret of ever even trying to do it. And so I think that a lot of times you've got to let that fear push you a little bit harder instead of letting it stop you.
Brad.
I mean, one of the things I had, and I think some of it is kind of like what Shawn was saying, is if you use it to, you see with a lot of athletes, if you're watching the Last Dance, the Jordan documentary, there's a commercial he did talk about all the shots he was left to make in the clutch
that he missed.
And the game that he missed, and that's why he succeeded. But I mean, I was 6 when my parents got divorced, so I grew up, and when my dad would come to things, I based my dad loving me off how I performed at a baseball game. And I remember there was a game, I went 0 for 3, got beaned, which ticked me off. And after the 3rd strikeout, I mean, I had just a breakdown. I mean, I chucked my batting helmet. I pretty much hit the dugout with a bat. I mean, I was just inconsolable. And so my dad brought me out there because I would see him every other weekend. And he would maybe see, if I played 20 baseball games this summer, he'd maybe see 2. So if I had a bad game, I viewed my performance as, and I think there's a lot of kids today that they don't know how to verbalize it, but they view what they do determines how much mom or dad loves them. And so like with my boys, one of the things that's shifted now is if I could have gone back, especially my teenage years, I would have tried to have some of those conversations with my parents about it. And so instead of feeling this pressure, and I didn't want to fail because if I failed, well, I let my family down and my dad was going to love me less. That's why I've kind of changed the whole topic with my boys and with them is to not give them that pressure, because I think there's a lot of us today as adults that we don't deal with those fears that we have growing up. And if we don't deal with them at some point, guess what? They don't go away. We bring them with us into adulthood. And then if we're not careful with that, then those fears can sometimes get transposed to our children.
Well, and your spouse and the people you work with. And I think it's going back to what both you guys have said, like fear leads you in one of 2 ways, right? It either pushes you or pressures you. Mm-hmm. You either feel the pressure or you get pushed. Or it paralyzes you, right? That's the pressure piece. You either get pushed or paralyzed. And so if it pushes you, you watch the Jordan documentary. The fear of losing is what pushed Michael Jordan to win. The fear of losing is what paralyzed everybody else in the league when he walked in. So his fear pushed him. Other people's it paralyzes. But I think there's another thing in there is that if you look at Scripture, Jesus says he's got a promise. Like if you accept my perfect love and you try to give that love to other people, you dissipate that fear. And you talk about if you could go back and talk to your teenage self. Man, I would deal with that. The problem is we need to tell that to our adult selves. Like I can't go back, but I can do something now. And so what you're doing with your boys, like I try to do with my girls, is, like my oldest daughter, Ella, she plays golf. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, why would you be like, I watch these girls get on the first tee and they're shaking and I finally and Ella's never been nervous. I remember at districts last year, there was 100 girls standing on the tee box and they were like, who wants to tee off first? She was in the first group and she was like, I'll go. And coach was like, are you sure? And she goes, I'm hitting a ball with a watermelon on a stick. What's the worst that can happen? And that perspective, like in that moment, I was like, she doesn't have any fear, because what's there to fear?
Do you think right now there's a bunch of students so glad that schools are shut down, don't have to play, so they don't have to have parents just yelling at them?
I'm sure
the
there
sports?
are. I'm sure the pressure has been relieved for some of them.
I think they're glad too, because I mean, shoot, I'd love it. I'd be playing video games and riding my bike all over the place.
Aren't you doing that anyhow right now? I'm pretty sure that's what you do right now. Call of Duty, man. Like,
anyone wants to text me, man. We'll get to the helos about 9:30 tonight.
Really, I mean, for real.
I think some kids feel there's.
Let's just get real here a little bit. Well, like,
you open the pressure cusher.
Let's just get real with parents a little bit here.
Yeah.
Now, it's gonna get a little painful. Just that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I've been to some of these games, and it's real.
Yeah.
Like some parents,
I coached for a while, and it's ridiculous.
You know, I'm about to get in trouble now, folks. I'm about to get in real trouble. I mean, I go to my boys' games, you know, Winston playing soccer and playing basketball. And usually I'm just sitting there with my phone and taking pictures. And I remember exactly one game, Lori's sitting by me, and she's yelling so loud that I quietly pick up my stuff and I move to the seat right behind her. Because it was way too much for me. And I'm thinking, man, just let the kids play. And I mean, come on. Do you think it's overboard? It's too much? I mean,
oh, sure. Absolutely. It's out of control. I mean, I without saying, I go to some high school basketball games, and there's a dad that I sit next to that if he loves Jesus, it is not evident by the way he responds at a basketball game. And I mean, the guy is, not only is he putting it on his kid every time he runs past him, you can just see the pressure on this kid, but he's putting it on everybody else. And you can just feel, he sucks the air out of the room. And I mean, he's been on at one point, I kind of did the same thing. I slid down the bench because referees came by and they were like, y'all are about to be out. I'm like, yo, don't y'all this. Y'all ain't in this. It's him. I'm just sitting on the bench. But I think there's we've got to be careful. And I think, I would agree. I think we could step into something right now, but I think it's worth stepping in. I think we've put such a pressure on kids to perform, whether it's academically, in sports. You know, I know people right now, their kids, this is probably the best thing happened to their kids, is because you're putting 8-year-olds, 14-year-olds in select to everything, and they don't have time to breathe. They literally don't have time to breathe, and they don't have time to be kids, and they don't have time. And so you're creating a system in them that they're going to grow up. And if they don't perform, there's this fear, if I don't perform. So I think there's a reason that we see more kids than ever in history medicated, dealing with depression. And I'm not saying all of this is from that, but I think a lot of it is we've raised the pressure level. I don't remember, and we're all kind of in the same generation, I don't remember when I was in school, and maybe it's just because I didn't care about being valedictorian or any of that, but I don't remember the pressure of academics being on every kid in the building. I don't remember the pressure of every kid having to perform being on, like, I played 3 sports. I played football, baseball, and lacrosse. And I remember there was, like, we wanted to win, but there was not this pressure to play one sport all year round. You could, but there was no pressure to do that. And you had the dads, some dads or moms that were just lunatic crazy, getting thrown out of every game, and then cussing their kids out if they didn't perform how they thought they should. But I think we've done our kids a disservice by putting this, you've got to be the best at everything, and if you're not the best, you're not worth anything.
Okay, so let me go to Sean now, because I know I have an idea how Brad's going to close this, but go ahead.
I definitely agree. There's 2 ways here. Some kids, it depends on the grade they're in and the level of academics they care about. Your kids who struggle, it's a breather. They can take a break. Your kids who are high performance kids, they like the academics. They like the pressure. They're not fearful of it. It's not, they're driving themselves. They're not driven by someone else. There's some fear for them that they don't get to do what they wanted to get to that next level. But I think overall, kids like the stuff. It's the pushing of the parents and the teachers who don't get it that causes that in them. And so most kids that I've talked to, they miss it. They'd rather be at school. They'd rather be in the grind of all of it. But there is some relief in the fact that there's not the everyday somebody the person that's better than you isn't right in front of you every single day.
Can I ask you a question in that realm, though, Sean?
Yeah.
Do you, and it comes off a question I just read on here. Do you think that some parents, working with a lot of parents and students, and I think I know the answer to this, but do you think that some parents put the pressure on their kids? That whole vicariously living through, they're putting pressure on them because
Yes.
if their kid doesn't succeed,
I
they're
wish
a
I
failure.
had done this when I was your age,
And-
so now I'm going to push you to do it.
And
Yes, I see that.
If my kid fails, then I'm a failure.
Yes. And
Twice.
Yeah. And that's really hard on kids when they think that your success rides on them. That's not fair. That's not, a kid should never feel that they determine their parents' success.
So, Brad, but don't you think that this pressure is actually a good thing? I mean, real life is tough. Real life, you're going to go get a job after college, and your boss is not going to be for you, hey, come here, cutie. Let me help you out. Did
you say come here, cutie?
Yes.
I think there's laws against that.
I think that gets you a
We're not
lawsuit, Joey.
1920s anymore?
It's different in Brazil. It's different in Brazil.
I think
In Detroit.
There is a cultural barrier that we just hit right there, y'all.
Brazil and Detroit, those are very similar places.
Brazil and Detroit, yeah.
Don't you think, like, your real life is tough, and don't you think it's good for kids to learn, like, hey,
Yeah,
get together? And
I think it's where the situational awareness comes in. Like if your kid there's a term that people use in the streets that in sports.
I'm scared of what you're about to say.
if they have that dog in them, and like there was a wrestler with a junkyard dog, and guys like a term for basketball players. Yeah, they would use it. Some guys like he's like a junkyard dog. He gets all the rebounds, does all the stuff. As your kids age and they get to a certain point, and if they're gifted academically, you know when to push them and when not to push them. And so it's like with mine, my oldest, he loves football, and so there's certain stuff there that with basketball where he'll come and tell me like, Dad, I need you to get on me about this. And okay, he gives me the green light, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to push him in that direction. So I think part of it is obviously how you parent and coach a 6-year-old, or how you educate or you work with them, and when they're 6 is different than when they're 12 and then when they're 14. So I think you got to have some situational awareness.
I know. See, what I like about this podcast is that if anybody listening right now, if you're heading out to like a movie trivia, make sure to come and pick up Brad Wilson, because he knows everything about movies, every line, he knows everything.
We actually talk in movie lines more than we talk in actual real conversation.
Well, thank you guys for coming. This was great. This was a great conversation.
Hey, before we get off of here, you never talked about what your biggest fear is, Joey. I know you're the moderator, but I'm calling an audible on.
I talk about airplane.
No, I want to know what it is right
fine.
now. That's not your fear right now. What's your biggest fear right
closed
now?
for a long term.
Man, true. Like, I'm afraid the B-Dub's never going to open up again.
Well,
He's afraid of going home since he said he moved away from his wife during a basketball game.
I'm really afraid of going home to Laura right now because she might whoop you.
I don't know. Since the whole airplane, I don't know. Besides the regular normal kids thing, like it.
Yeah.
I always, every time that it's really pathetic. If one of the boys gets sick, just like fever, and I am not wired to handle that, and really takes me to a whole new place. So some things that might be small and common and whatever for kids is my biggest thing when it comes to that, because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to resolve this, and I need to, I have to, and I feel the pressure. So yeah, I would say that's it. I mean, it gets real pretty fast with me.
Yeah. It's good.
But this is good discussion. This is good conversation. Thanks, Sean,
Yeah, thanks for having
coming. Thanks for being here tonight. And this Sunday, we'll be back 10 a.m. for a great weekend experience service here.
And I would say if you live in the Mason area, Brad, tomorrow, Saturday. Wait, no, not tomorrow.
Yep.
Saturday. Today's Thursday.
Yes.
Saturday. What day is it? COVID. That's what day it is. What's going on Saturday, Brad?
We've been doing throughout the COVID-19 shutdown pandemic stuff is from 10 to 12. We'll be collecting food items, breakfast, lunch items, just for our district kids, that free reduced lunch is just a way to help them.
How many meals have we done so far? It's 20,000 plus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easily 20,000 plus. So,
Yep.
it's awesome. We're partnering with local groups, and it's just great kind of seeing the community.
And you
all the
distribute
people
that
come
during
together.
the week as well, right? We're not just collecting, we're actually distributing as well.
Most definitely. Mondays and Mondays 11:30 to 1 up at Mason Elementary, and then here from 5 to 7, and then Wednesdays at St. Vincent de Paul, Western Row, and Mason Elementary. So,
Well, and the reason that's imperative, and I want to talk about it, is we've been commissioned and asked by our community to do this for the summer, because we were only going to do it through the school year, but now we're being asked to do this through the summer. And so if you can this weekend, please bring the supplies. There's lists on all of our social media. If you can bring stuff by, you don't even have to get out of your car. Just pop your trunk. We'll have volunteers with gloves and all the protocol to get it out, and pack meals as well.
we got the grocery getters out front, so
the G squared, buddy. The
you roll
grocery
up,
getters.
grab and go, man.
That's great.
Well, on that note, most of all, church, know that we love and miss you, and we know that it's a lot of anxiety and confusion, fear, and isolation right now. But remember, you're not alone. If you need someone to pray with you, we have a hotline. Make sure to call us, to contact us. We're in this together, and don't forget that. Have a good evening, everyone. We see you in 2 weeks. Next week, living room session, 8 p.m. Make sure to connect here, 8 p.m. Next Thursday, living room session. I'll see you all.
Yep. Have a great night, y'all. Thanks.
We all need community. Connection. One of the most unique elements of CC Live is that it is more than just a once-a-week worship experience. We are creating a global community of believers who meet together worldwide to be inspired, equipped, and encouraged with their faith. And the best part about it is you can do it anytime, anywhere. The purpose of online groups is building community while growing your Christian faith. Online groups watch video-based Bible teaching and discuss what they're learning from the comfort of their own homes. During the week between meetings, group members can dive deeper into the topic in preparation for the next meeting. It's simple, easy, and impactful. So grab a coffee, a Bible, and your device of choice, and let's get ready to learn more about God and His Word together. Looking for a group? Head to the CC Live Facebook page now to find the one that's right for you.
Are you on Spotify? If so, be sure to check out our worship playlists by searching for the playlist name, Worship at Christ's Church.
Giving online couldn't be any easier. To give, go to ourchristchurch.com. Click on the Give link. On the giving page, click on Give from Bank Account. Next, click on the link to PushPay. On this page, you can set up your one-time gift or set up a recurring gift. You can also make a gift by simply texting CC Mason to 77977. Click on the link you receive. Next, fill out your information and submit your gift.